Hi there, everyone. My name is Vishal Seni, and I'm an instructor at AP2V Solution. And I would like to welcome you all to the course, which is Kubernetes Administration. Right. So before we get into the course curriculum and all, right, and a kind of an introduction from me, uh, I've been working into IT industry for almost 10 plus years now, and my majority of the experience is into the system administration, specifically Linux system administration. Right? From past 4 5 years, I have switched my profile into teaching, and I teach us a lot of trending technologies like cloud computing, DevOps, Linux administration, right? Your Kubernetes, infrastructure as code, everything, right? So you're talking about the DevOps pipeline, DevOps tools. I'm delivering trainings on all those stuff, right? I have delivered training for a lot of corporates, which includes Ericsson, Nokia, IBM, HCL. You know, I have also delivered training for APAC region as well. You know, Singapore, Australia, New Zealand. Now, coming back to the topic, the course which we have to discuss today is basically what you call Kubernetes administration. So this is a customized course which we have created to give you the knowledge of Kubernetes. This helps you get prepared for a certification as well, a global certification, which is basically CK, Certified Kubernetes Administration. So we covers up almost 60, 70% of that course curriculum or that exam curriculum as well inside this content, right? So if you go through this, if I just tell you about what exactly is the things which you are going to learn in the classes, the first chapter is all about the introduction. So we'll be talking about what containerization is, what container comes into the picture, what is Docker, right? What is the difference between Docker and Kubernetes, what exactly Kubernetes is, what's the architecture of a Kubernetes, how do you implement that thing in an enterprise grade solution, right? And we'll be understanding the basics of YAMLs as well, right? So those are the things which we are going to cover up in chapter number first. The second chapter is getting the Kubernetes cluster up and running, right? So we, in this particular course, we will be deploying that infrastructure on AWS, right? So we'll be using the Ubuntu machines and we'll get it deployed on AWS cloud. You can have it on GCP, or if in case you have your own private laptop and with a very good configuration, in fact, you can get it deployed on your personal laptop as well. Right? We will be focusing on Ubuntu. The reason why we are using Ubuntu as an operating system or a base operating system, because the certification basically is conducted on Ubuntu machine itself, right? You can have it installed on CentOS if you want, like entirely your choice. I can share you the steps for those as well. So the installation and configuration is all about that, right? How to get the Kubernetes cluster up and running. So we'll be talking about a simple situation where you have a single master multi-worker node scenario, and how to get it deployed is something which we are going to cover up in chapter number second. On chapter number third, which is basically Docker fundamental, this is where we are going to understand the basics of Docker, because Docker is what you call the core component of a Kubernetes infrastructure, right? So we'll be talking about what Docker is, how to create the containers inside the Docker, how to customize your own application, create your own application image using the Docker files and host that inside a single machine. So that's something which we are going to cover up in this particular section of Docker fundamental. Chapter number 4 is the base of Kubernetes, pod, the fundamental unit of Kubernetes. To get the application deployed, we have to talk about pod. We'll be talking about the pod, the types of pod, static pod, a neat pod, a normal application pod, the multi-container pods. You'll be talking about the jobs, right? The cron jobs, something like a jobs in there. The labels is more like an identical information inside your pod, right? And the selector, like how exactly the pod is supposed to be deployed on the worker nodes. So that's where the selector comes into the picture. So that's where, that's the things which you are going to cover up in chapter number 4. Chapter number 5 is understanding the namespaces. So it's not the Linux or the kernel namespaces which we are familiar with. This is more like an isolated environment. Majority of the applications which comes in the market nowadays are what you call the multi-tenant applications, right? So you got multiple users to work on a single infrastructure, and that's possible using these separations in between them, right? A completely isolated environment to be provided in between them, and that's what the namespace does for us, right? So we have to understand the functionality of a namespace, how it gets created, deleted, how do you provide the isolations, is everything in there on chapter number 5. On chapter number 6, we'll be talking about the services, right? So different type of services inside Kubernetes, be it a cluster IP service, be it a node port service, be it a load balancer service. So we'll be doing the practical of all, but load balancer. We'll not be doing the load balancer practical. I'll let you know the limitations for load balancers, and that's the reason why we are going to learn another resource, which I had just added into this, which is known as the ingress controller, right? So we'll be talking about ingress controller in these services. Then you talk about the replications. Obviously, a proper DR solution has to be there. We are talking about orchestration of containers. So for orchestration of containers, you need to have some sort of DR scenario or a replication factor in the picture. That's where the replication controller comes into the picture, right? So we'll be talking about replication controller, we'll be talking about replica set, and we can talk about the daemon sets as well, because there would be this is something which is there in the curriculum of your CK certification to understand the daemon set. So we'll be talking about that as well. And then there's another method to get a proper enterprise grade application deployed inside the Kubernetes cluster using deployments. We'll be talking about the differences between the deployments. Majority of the time the deployments are used when you're talking about automatically upgrade your applications, right? So the strategies which we have to use to upgrade the applications running inside the pod, that's where the deployment comes into the picture, right? So we'll be talking about the deployments, the strategies which we can use to get your application upgraded, right? Rolling, changing the images, everything. So we'll be talking about that in chapter number 8. Chapter number 9 is all about understanding the volumes. Storage is one of the most critical component in any solution, right? So when you're talking about storage, how Kubernetes provide the storage for your pods to run, right? That's where the Kubernetes volumes comes into the picture. We were talking about PV, we'll be talking about PVCs, right? How to get the PV created, how to get the PVC created, get it attached to a pod, is something which we are going to cover up on chapter number 9. Chapter number 10 is injecting some data inside the pod just to do some sort of customization with it, right? So we'll be talking about the secrets, how to create the secrets, how to create the config maps, how to get that secret attached to the pod using the environment variable, or maybe specifically as a volume mount, right? So that's where that's the thing which you are going to cover up on chapter number 10. Now, in chapter number 11, this is very important, right? So you got the storage part covered. The next very important part, which comes in any production grade applications, is basically networking. So how the networking behaves. We'll be talking about the CNIs, the SDNs in here, right? We'll be talking about the communication. We'll track down the packet flow between the cluster and from outside the cluster as well, right? So that is something which we are going to cover up on chapter number 11, guys, right? So this is what we are going to provide you in this training, which is Kubernetes Administration. As I told you, it helps you prepare for a certification as well, which is CK, right? We covers up almost 70-80%, like 60-70% of the questions through these topics. The remaining are something which you have to study by yourself, or obviously you can come back to me and say, Vishal, we want to prepare ourselves for the certification as well. I can help you out with that. I can guide you for that thing, right? So with that, see you in the class. All the very best. Take care. Stay safe.